I'm James Himm Mitchell, and I'd like to welcome you to the Oracle Outlook. In this video, I'll be doing a tarot card reading for the week starting June the 6th, 2016, so stay tuned. And here we are with the cards on the table, and the deck assisting me for this week's reading is the Fairy Tarot cards by Doreen Virtue, Radleigh Valentine, and Howard David Johnson. And the reason for this deck selection is twofold. First, I'm responding and reacting to the messages that came through in last week's Oracle Outlook, and if you're interested in that, I will put the link to that in the description box below. And the reason why I'm mentioning that is because last week I did an angel card reading, and one of the cards in the reading for the end of the week was the fairies card. And so I acknowledge that it could be a message for people to consider the idea of working with fairy cards. So since I have this deck in my collection and this was the week for me to do a tarot card reading, I figured I would respond to that message and use this deck. So that's the first reason. Second reasoning is that we are now in the midst of, as I shoot this video, a new moon, and so a new moon is a time for setting new intentions, and it's also a great time for manifesting and working with the fairies. They support us in our desires for manifesting anything in the material world because they are the angels that are closest to the earth. So that is my reasoning for the deck. So now that I've said that, I'm going to go ahead and shuffle the cards. And as I do in every one of these weekly video readings, I'm setting the intention of asking Spirit and the angels, and in this particular case the fairies, what do we need to know for the week ahead? What is the information that's going to serve us in the best and highest good? What are the messages that each of us needs for life where we are in our current experience of that? Because each one of us who comes across this video is in a different place in life. So there's going to be a message, hopefully, that will be pertinent to everyone who comes in contact with this video. At least one message. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the top three cards. First card is going to represent the beginning of the week. Second card, the middle of the week. And then rounding out the line, the third card will be the end of the week. So these are the cards. And I'm going to start by turning the remainder of the deck over and looking at the bottom card, because the bottom card is going to serve as the foundation for the week. And so I'm putting the whole entire deck there. And the card that's on the bottom is the Five of Autumn. So the Five of Autumn is a card that can represent looking at what we believe to be true for us in terms of material resources. The suit of autumn is about things like career, finances, anything that we place any kind of value on. And so that could be a material type of value system. It could also be like making sure that we are in alignment with our intrinsic and core value system, our personal value system. What do we personally value? The 5 in tarot numerology for me represents two things. It could be like there's going to be a change in our experience, either with money or in terms of our career, or that we are being asked to examine what we believe to be true in terms of our beliefs and how we experience life. So it could be like, let's say you may be looking at monetary or financial changes, and so that's the surface experience, and then the deeper experience could be a call for you to look at what you believe to be true about money. So it could be something like that. Same thing with your career. Sometimes the Five of Autumn for me can represent, like, if somebody watching this video is going through a career change, it could be that they're facing career challenges. Sometimes this card can represent, like, people who have been unemployed or without work for some time. There could be people who are working without having any kind of benefits, and so that becomes a concern. It's usually like if there is a job or employment issue, there is a financial concern attached to that. If you're watching this video and you happen to be self-employed, then the Five of Autumn is asking you to consider if now's the good time for you to be exploring self-employment, if you're considering venturing out into that, or that you may be having financial challenges around that. Sometimes with self-employment, if you're just venturing out, sometimes this card is asking you to take a pause on that. There may be some other things you may need to have in place, or there may be circumstances or situations in your life that maybe would be having an effect on how you could effectively move into your self-employment venture. It could be like if you are already embarking in that, then this card sometimes can represent things running in cycles. I tend to look at the Five of Autumn as a feast or famine type of situation. So it could be like you have cycles where your self-employment venture is producing or generating income, and then there are moments when you're experiencing what I call crickets, where there's nothing going on, and it could be like if you're a service-based professional or provider, it could be like you're operating on a time is money paradigm, and that when you don't have any clients, you also don't have any income. So it could be something of that, and it could be like if that is the experience that you're having, then the Five of Autumn could be asking you to consider other ways that you could look at generating income that doesn't have to do with the time for money model. So I'm seeing things like that. Now, in terms of personal relationships, the Five of Autumn can sometimes represent like the experience of feeling like you are an outsider, like you're on the outside looking in on life, or that you feel like you don't belong in groups, or people have made you feel excluded, because sometimes this card can represent like being ignored, being shut out, being devalued. If you go with the idea like autumn is about valuing something, then this could be like being devalued. I'm seeing this sometimes as like, the idea of like being given the cold shoulder, or that you're being frozen out, that kind of energy. So it could be just like if you may be experiencing that this week, and if you are, then it could be just a matter of you looking at maybe this is the time for you to no longer be connected or attached or associated with that group of people who are kind of like putting you on the outside looking in, that kind of experience. So if you're feeling like you don't really belong to a group anymore, maybe you're being asked to take a look at that, like especially if you're having feelings like you still want to be a part of that, and you're feeling like at the same point in time your sense of belonging is kind of being diminished, then it could be you needing to ask yourself the difficult question of like, what is it about that group that you feel like you still need to be a part of if they don't value you in a way that your contribution is important? Because then it's no longer about the group and it becomes about you, and that's an opportunity for some self-examination. So again, summing up, the Five of Autumn, no matter how you look at it, is saying that something is changing in your material world, and you're being asked to take a look at that on the surface level, take a look at the changes, maybe react and respond to the changes as best as you can with the resources you have at your availability and disposal, but also to look at like the deeper beliefs that may be connected to those material experiences. Because my work with tarot it's not just about the surface appearance. Tarot is always asking you to look at yourself. So it's about, take a look at the experience, but also turn the lens on yourself and saying, what is that teaching you about you? What is that informing you about you? What are you meant to be learning from that experience? Because I'm reminded of a quote from one of my spiritual teachers, Iyanla Van Zandt, and she always says that every experience is a lesson that God would have us learn. So, when you're having your experiences this week, ask yourself the deeper question is like, what is this experience teaching me? What is it informing me about my beliefs? Because there may be a belief that you need to examine and maybe kind of work on tweaking or changing or letting go. So again, material experiences, but also looking at the deeper beliefs. There could be something connected to your job and employment and your earning potential surrounding that, some concern with that. If you're embarking on self-employment, it's about asking you to look at, is this a good time to be moving in that direction? Or how can you change the feast and famine cycle that you might be experiencing in your self-employment venture? And then lastly, the idea of like, if you're feeling shut out of a group, if you're feeling like you're the misfit, the outsider, take a look at that. It may be like you may need to consider a new group to become a part of. But if you're hanging on to that, then ask yourself, what do you get out of people not treating you in the way that you deserve? Because it's no longer about the group, and that's an opportunity for self-exploration. So now we're going to take a look at the cards for the week. And for the beginning of the week, we have the Dreamer. Okay, so now the Dreamer is a major arcana card, and so for me, major arcana cards carry more weight in a reading when they appear. So the Dreamer, if you go with the traditional tarot, if you're proficient in that, then the Dreamer is the Fool card. So whenever the Fool card, or the Dreamer in this case, shows up, it can represent a new experience. So again, a lot of those things that I was talking about with the Five of Autumn, it's also creating an opportunity to have a new experience. This card, like I said, represents a fresh start, a clean slate. It could represent whatever the experience is that we are moving in, because the fairy on the card is embarking on a path, so it could be representative of a new path before us. We're needing to understand that whatever the experience is, it's new. And so we're going to be beginning, we're going to be, starting out, and we're going to be like a novice. So I'm saying all of that to say this, is like the experience, we're not going to know everything we need to know about it going in. Sometimes this is about learning as you go along. So I'm seeing that kind of energy. So again, this just represents new beginnings, this idea of being inexperienced and gaining experience as you go about the journey. For some of us watching this video, the Dreamer is a card about taking a leap of faith. And with that, knowing that if you take the leap, that the universe is going to support you in providing the next step. It could be somebody's watching this video and they may be aware that they need to move into a new direction, but they're kind of holding themselves back because they may be either not trusting themselves, or they're not trusting that the universe is going to support them. But the way it works is this. Is like nothing happens until you take the first step, and then the universe is either going to support that step, or gently course correct you and put you on the path that you're supposed to be on if you take a misstep. But either way, you're being asked to take the step. And I'm also going to say this, because I think I said it already, but I'm going to say it again. Sometimes when we are in that space of taking the first step, and no matter what the experience is, that first step is the most important step to take. It's like sometimes we don't trust ourselves enough to take the step. We may be looking at things that we've done in the past, and we may be looking like, oh, I did that once before, or the last time I tried something like that, it was a foolish thing, it was a mistake, it was unwise, it was reckless, whatever you want to label it. You may be looking at a past experience and labeling that as justification for you kind of keeping yourself in this holding pattern and not taking any step. So you have to be willing to kind of let go of that idea, that belief, going with the Five of Autumn, that belief that that was a mistake. And, maybe take a look at that former experience and ask yourself, what did you learn from that? Because here's the thing, only fools do the same thing again because they didn't learn from the previous time. So that's my take on that. So it would only be foolish or unwise if you didn't learn the lesson the last time you had a similar experience. So again, the dreamer is just about embarking on a new step, a new phase, new chapter in your life, maybe not having all the experience you think you need to have, but taking at least one step, because the fairy is on the path, and then the path comes to a straight line, and then there are steps. I don't know if you can see it clearly, but there are steps here. So it just represents like getting to the step, and then as you go down the path, the steps will be presented to you. So it's not about like needing to have it all figured out from a logical standpoint. Just trust that if you embark on the path, that the steps will be provided to you when you need to take them. So that is the dreamer. And the last thing I want to say about the dreamer is that this can be a card where, as timing, it can represent like the next 12 months could be very important. So it could be like if you're embarking on something new, it could be like the next year is going to be very significant if you trust yourself and trust the universe and take the step that's going to put you on that path. But this card would suggest that the next year would be significant in some shape, form, or fashion. So that's the dreamer. Middle of the week, we have Seven of Winter. Okay, so for me, this could be one of the things I mentioned with the Five of Autumn is that was job and employment. And so sometimes Seven of Winter can be about a job or career change. That's the first thing for me that comes to mind. So it could be embarking on a new phase with one's job or career, and with that it could be the job that you're moving into. You may have some doubt about whether you can do the job because you might not have all the experience you think you need to have to get the job done. And so, but take a look at that. But these two cards as a combination could be suggesting that one of the new things coming up would be a job or career change. Sometimes the Seven of Winter for me can be a card that can represent doing the unexpected. So this card could just represent like moving down a path that you probably hadn't planned on or anticipated that you would be moving down. And if people around you who would know you would suggest like, oh, that's kind of out of character, or we never thought that you would do something like that, that kind of energy. But it's probably being a direction that you're being asked to move into. The other thing with the Seven of Winter for me is like if you're feeling with the Dreamer card that you don't have all the experience, then the Seven of Winter as a backup card would suggest like this is an idea about doing research or gaining the information that you think you would need to have that you currently don't have, that would make it easier for you to move down that path. So I'm seeing that as energy. So it could be just in the middle of the week we're being called to like kind of do some research, gather some information. If you're considering a job or career change, what information would you need to have that would help you clearly decide what direction you want to move in or what kind of job you want to pursue? That kind of energy. If you're doing the self-employment venture like I talked about with Five of Autumn, then what information would you have in order to successfully move into that? It could be a concern would be leaving something established. I sometimes see that with the Seven of Winter. It could be leaving something established. And so what would you need to have in place? Because winter cannot necessarily just be information, but what kind of systems, what kind of processes do you need to have in place that would allow you to leave something established and start your own thing? And so it's about you kind of moving into that kind of space. The other thing with the Seven of Winter in conjunction with that, this is for people who are embarking on self-employment. What kind of legal documentation do you need to have? Because I'm seeing in my mind, for me personally, this is around the time of the year where I have to renew my LLC formation. So it's like if you're kind of like maybe deciding on that kind of status for your business or your company, like, if it's going to be a sole proprietorship, if it's going to be an LLC, if it's going to be incorporated, I'm seeing that kind of energy. So what kind of information you would need to have from a legal standpoint that's going to serve as the best structure or foundation for your business. So I'm seeing that as kind of energy. If we're talking about personal relationships, the Seven of Winter is a card that can suggest being mindful of what people are saying about you, because sometimes this card can be about like gossip and rumor and speculation, and maybe some people inserting themselves into your life and your business. And that's, when I say business, I'm not just talking about like working business, but into your business without your permission. It's kind of like people who want to give you unsolicited advice, and that's the positive end of that. On the negative side of that, it could be like people who are just busybodies and trying to mind your affairs. So that's kind of, so you have to kind of watch that. So be mindful of possibly, being in the middle of gossip, rumor, speculation. And so that could be like you are on the receiving end of that, or this is a heads up for you to pay attention to what you are saying about other people, because you might be the one who might be participating in gossip and rumor and speculation. So check yourself if that's the case. Because I'm a big believer in that the energy we put out is what we get back. And so like if you're participating in that, then just be aware that at some point in time, that's going to come visiting you because you planted that seed. So again, this is just about taking a look at that. And then if that's the case, then ask yourself this question: what does it matter to me, or why does it matter to me if it does? Why does it matter to me what people are saying about me? Because I'm being reminded of, and I believe I heard this once from Abraham, and it goes something like this. The idea here is like, what people think or say about you is none of your business. But if you find out about it, how you choose to react and respond to it is your business. So be mindful of, if you're occupied or preoccupied with what people are saying about you, and I'm saying that as a nice way to bring the dreamer back in, because then in that regard, then this card would be about like trying to fit in. And that would make sense with the Five of Autumn in terms of like belonging to a group, trying to fit in, and then people saying things about you as a result of that. So it could be like you taking a look at that and saying, why does it matter to me so much what people are saying about me? Especially if it's not true. Here's the thing about this, because everybody has their opinion. And an opinion only becomes the truth if you believe it. So I'm going to say that again. An opinion only becomes the truth if you believe it. So if somebody says something about you that you know is not true, don't give it any energy, because if you do, then there may be a part of you that is willing to believe that. And so if that's the case, why is that? Why are you trying to make that person's opinion the truth? So those are some things to consider with the Seven of Winter. And so rounding out the week, we have the King of Summer. Okay, so now when the King of Summer comes up, and this may be an approach, because kings, queens, pages, and princes, especially in this deck, they can represent approaches that we're being asked to consider taking or adopting. So at the end of the week, we may face a situation where we're being asked to approach it from an emotional standpoint, because summer is the suit of emotions, from an emotional standpoint of being calm, cool, and collected. Typically the image is that there is a king sitting on a throne, and he's on like a slab of concrete or some rock formation of some kind, and the water, which is his natural element, the water is all around him. And so it's just a matter of emotional mastery and getting your emotions and your feelings under control. And so going with this, what I said in the middle of the week, it could be just a matter of you kind of just getting yourself kind of stabilized, emotionally speaking, and not letting what other people think or say about you get to you. It could be that energy. It could also be, too, the King of Summer is asking us to maybe be mindful of situations in which we may find ourselves getting in the middle of things, because I sometimes see this card as like playing the referee. And so it's like, you're in between two people who may be having a disagreement, and you are trying to kind of keep them from letting that situation escalate. And so it's like, I'm seeing this. I have been told about my own personal demeanor is like I sometimes have been called the rock, or, when I'm amidst a group of people, I'm like the calming force or the calming influence, or the one who is pretty stable, and I can help maybe keep a situation from escalating between two parties or two different groups within a larger group. So I have demonstrated that, and so I'm seeing that in my mind. And so it could be somebody watching this video may be faced with a similar energy. It could be like either you may be feeling inclined to kind of maybe be a neutral third party, because I have this idea for me. I always say that I'm like Switzerland and I'm neutral. So it could be, just approaching a situation in which you get to be the one who is neutral. So it could be like a neutral third party, maybe playing referee to kind of maybe de-escalate a situation. That kind of energy. It's like the King of Summer, he is like the doctor, the healer, the therapist. I sometimes look at him as the metaphysician. So it's like, how can you maybe apply those types of beliefs if you're, one who practices metaphysical principles, ideas, concepts? Is like, how can you maybe apply that into an experience that you may have at the end of the week with the idea of, keeping the peace, that kind of energy. So I'm seeing that as a possibility. I'm checking in to see what else I need to say about that. No, yeah, I'm getting the sense of like you being the calming influence, whatever that might be. And it could just also be too just a matter of maybe you just serving the role as a demonstration, because I'm seeing the idea here, especially with the Seven of Winter, could be like the idea of like people watching you and watching what you do. It could be like this is an opportunity for you to be a demonstration of not letting things kind of ruffle your feathers, you kind of holding the space that you're going to not let people or circumstances or situations steal your peace, because that reminds me of another aspect of Seven of Winter. Seven of Winter can be the thief card. So it could be like there could be situations in which people are trying to quote unquote steal your peace or rob you of your joy, and you're being asked to kind of not let that happen to the best of your ability. So it's about you being patient, you being calm, you being collected, that kind of energy. And so as you do that, I'm a big believer in as you do that, and if people are watching, you offer a demonstration of maybe a better way of handling emotional situations, or helping people check their own emotional reactions and responses to situations that pop up in their own life. So you may be serving a higher purpose and being a demonstration for other people around you. So that is my take on the 3 cards for the week. Now we're going to look to see what the overall lesson card is for the week, and we'll be looking at that from the perspective of the major arcana of the tarot. And now we're going to be looking at what the lesson card is for the week, and the way I do that is I take the numbers on all the cards and I add them across, and then I look to see if it falls in line with a number between 1 and 22. And if it's over 22, then we'll take the digits and add them together until we get a number that fits between 1 and 22. So for the Dreamer is 0, so that's 0. The Seven of Winter is 7, so we have 7. And then the King of Summer is, for me, 14, because Kings in Tarot for me are valued at 14. So 7 and 14 is 21. And the 21st card in the deck is the World card, so I'm going to pull that out. Wasn't too far down from the stack, which was a good thing. So the World card, when it shows up, and I'm going to put it right here. So we have an interesting thing going on here. The World card can represent the successful completion of a chapter or a stage in one's life. So here we have an interesting thing here, because the other major arcana card was a Dreamer, and I said the Dreamer represents a new start and a beginning, and then the World card in that regard can represent the ending. So we have the beginning and the end. So it could be saying too that there may be some situations in our life that are kind of completing, that's going to set the stage for the new chapter or the new phase that we're being asked to move into or embark on. So the World card can also be, in terms of completion, it could just represent like a new level of awareness. So remember with the Five of Autumn, I had given the suggestion of asking the deeper question of like what the experiences that we're having this week, what are they teaching us, what are they informing us about our beliefs, because the World card in that regard can represent like a graduation, if you will, to a new level of awareness. And with that, it's about like, you know, having the final piece of the puzzle. Let's say like whatever the situation is, if you go with the analogy, like it's a jigsaw puzzle and you may be looking for that one piece that's going to complete the puzzle. It's like this could be the week where you get that piece and it falls into the puzzle, if you will. And once a puzzle is completed, then it's no longer a puzzle. It's like it's complete. You get to see the picture, you get the answer, you get the solution. And with that, it could be, because I said the picture, you're being asked to maybe take a step back and look at the bigger picture, because the World card can represent like, you know, something worldly, something global, something universal. And with that, the idea here is that you're being asked to maybe take a step back and look at the bigger picture. So yeah, you can look at the smaller picture of the experience, but then take a step back and say, how does this fit into the bigger or larger picture? So I'm seeing that kind of energy. But I'm going to say here that the World card can just represent, you know, a successful completion of a chapter or a phase that sets the stage for a new journey, a new experience, but with that, some new level of awareness being gained. Now, the World card, since I mentioned job and employment with a couple of cards, the World card can be a card about career path. And so one thing for people watching this video who are on that track, it could be like your career path is undergoing some sort of change, you know, maybe a change in direction, because sometimes this card is about like travel or journeying or moving. So there could be like too, you know, somebody's embarking on a trip, you know, somebody is actually thinking about moving. And if that is the case, then the move would be something where distance is going to be involved in that. It wouldn't be like you just moving from one town to the next town. It would be like either you changing states or you are moving from one side of the world to the other side of the world, that kind of thing. Whatever the move is, if it's a geographic move, there is going to be some distance applied to that. But now going back to the career thing, if you are embarking on a career, then it could be like the change could be like you are kind of like retiring from one type of work and moving into the next type of work, because sometimes this card can be about retirement. And so that could be actually literal retirement, or it could be like you just retiring from the career or industry that you're in, setting the stage for you to move into a newer type of industry or one that is new to you. Going with the Fool card or the Dreamer card, remember I had said that that would be a new experience. So the World card would be like having a lot of experience. You've gained a lot of experience in maybe your current, which may be now becoming your former type of work, and then you moving into some new type of work in which the learning curve, you're learning all over again, because it may be totally different from what you were doing. There may be elements that are the same, but a lot of it may be new or different. So I'm seeing that, you know, if we're talking about the idea here about the group situation, you know, this like this sense of belonging, then the World card is about like maybe kind of like leaving that group or moving away from that. Now, if you're self-employed or you're considering a self-employment venture, when the World card comes up, I see this as this spiritual practitioner card. So it could be anyone who does things like I read tarot, so that could be something like that. It could be somebody who maybe is practicing astrology, somebody who does numerology, somebody who may be an energy healer, any type of spiritual practice, or you know, any kind of spiritual practitioner work could be around that self-employment venture I was talking about. And so it could be, you know, maybe that time of maybe this is not the time to move into that. Maybe you get the final piece of the puzzle, you get the aha, you get the realization that kind of falls into place and kind of helps you move along. So I'm just seeing that. So it could be either a spiritually based business, or that the final piece of the puzzle falls into place and allows you to move forward with that self-employment venture. So that is the World card. That is the lesson card for the week, and that completes this week's Oracle Outlook with the Tarot. So I am James Himm Mitchell, and I am signing off. And as I sign off, I want to thank you for joining me for this week's reading and sharing this space with me. And as I sign off, I'm wishing you a wonderful day. I'm hoping you have a wonderful week. And until we get together in the next video, take care.